All right. Good evening, kings and queens, and we are live. Welcome to Manhood and Mental Health, Breaking the Silence Week 2. I am Shenetta Malkia, Empowerment Essence founding president and executive director, and I am joined tonight with two amazing guests. First of all, my first queen is with us for this entire 6-week series as she is our partner, Miss Angela C. Green, Angela C. Green Ministries. Good morning. Well, good evening now, Queen. What's going on? We've been working straight through.
In the building, what's good? Let's get it popping.
Let's get it. And then I am so honored. So this next guest that we have tonight is my dear friend, a brother that has helped Empowerment Essence from starting at the very beginning in 2014. He has served. He is serving. He is an example. He is a king with purpose. And tonight, he is my backdrop. Yes. Brandon Johnson, my amazing dear friend. Thank you for joining us tonight. How are you?
I'm good. I'm well. I'm so happy to be here. And thank you both for not just having me here, but just creating a platform like this for us and our people to talk about mental health and to really dig into this in a time where it couldn't be any more critical. So thank you, both of you, for what you're doing.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you. So this week too, Brandon, this week too. Last week we had an amazing time. So we had Mr. Jermaine Jermaine Johnson from Reality Check Mentoring, and we had Pastor Aaron Smallwood. And we started the whole conversation with manhood and mental health. What does that mean? Because in the Black community, I don't think that there was a lot of conversations in regard to what manhood looks like in a healthy state. And then even taking it a step further in talking about what are some of the things that keep our men from not speaking out about what's hurting them, what's going on with them, and then how do we better support them? Because, you know, sometimes we can be rather rough on our own.
Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely.
So Angie, this week, how have you been? I know you had some questions about tonight. I know you're excited about tonight. Angela, so Shenetta, what direction are we going? And I'm like, well, Brandon can go in multiple directions. And I think that God is just going to take this conversation in an elevated state. So I really wanted to jump in and just give individuals an opportunity to find out exactly who you are, Brandon, the work you've done just locally in our state here in Maryland. I know you and I have worked together on the Governor's Commission for Suicide Governor's Commission for Suicide Prevention, those tongue twisters. And I thank you, Lisa, Centrice, and she'll be joining us also. She's going to be a guest with us on the 17th of July. So Centrice is coming. But tell us exactly everything that you're working on. Talk to us about Hope Now, what you're doing.
Sure. So, so again, thank you all for having me here. So really, I have been in the mental health space really since college. So I went to the illustrious Morgan State University.
Let's go, Morgan.
I will always rep my school. So I went there and really wanting to jump in and go into like electrical engineering because they kept talking about pay. I did about a semester of that and realized that was not where I was gifted to go. And so I went and transferred into psychology. And so I really had some critical mentors there that really poured into me and allowed me to kind of think through how I could use where I was passionate about and put it to work. And so I really started to focus on violence. So like violence and mental health in our community. Just to say too, I am a Baltimore boy through and through.
Go ahead.
I can hear it. I can hear that accent. I can hear the accent.
Hear the T's and the D's.
I love it.
But you made it.
Yeah. So it's so we, so I was born there, and you kind of grow up with things that you see in your city, in your community. And so, I could see some of the mental health effects of some of the things that we experience in Baltimore, a lot of the things that we've been talking about a lot in the media right now, about just our experience growing up. And so I kept that in mind and worked on violence prevention. And then after I graduated from Morgan, I went to Johns Hopkins University and went into to get my master's in health science. Amen. I concentrated on mental health, like that was my concentration. And so I got to work at Johns Hopkins School of Nursing when I was there, and really got to work on different like research studies and things. And so I was working on a study with some professors there, and shout out to all my friends from Johns Hopkins School of Nursing. And it was on a study looking at domestic violence. So it was looking at intimate partner violence with women who had experienced some abuse during pregnancy. And as a part of that, it was, we took some mental health things from it. And, we had home visitation nurses that went into the homes and talked to the women. And I was able to do some analyses on that for my master's thesis. And so I really wanted to stay in this space. And so what happened was, eventually the position at the state opened up. So I was the director of suicide and violence prevention for almost 4 years. And then I made the jump to and suicide prevention within African American communities. So so I really focusing on that, and I'm able to really do some awesome things as a part of that, and really getting to connect with folk. And so one of the things I do as well is that I lead this initiative called Faith, Hope, Life, which is centered on getting faith communities more equipped to talk about suicide prevention and to get involved in the work. And so I've been able to travel the country, go to different events, different communities, different faith communities, and talk about this work. We have tons of resources and stuff on our website. It's been really, really, faith is a big part of my life, and it really kind of drives what I do. I've worked in the youth ministry at my church, I guess now for 12, 13 years.
Salute to you, King. Thank you. Yeah, so thank you.
No problem. But it's really a passion of mine. And so I love working with kids. And so I've been able to see my kids grow up, like have kids, get married. Like it's a crazy thing. So, that's really where my work is now. Like I'm super passionate about what I do with working with youth, working with men, working with, my brothers in this community to really talk about mental health and suicide prevention, which, we haven't grown up talking about.
I see. And I told you, Angie, I told you when Brandon speak, he was just going to be dropping little things here and there, and we just going to go and explore. So Brandon, for you coming from Baltimore and like growing up in mental health not being spoken about in the Black community, what would you say is the first thing that we need to do within our community to start that conversation as we are tonight, to continue the conversation? Why don't you think that we have had that conversation? I said last week, and I'll keep saying that, I think that we have different resources and tools that are available to us. And I think that some of our generations before us just didn't have it. And it was somewhat shunned against, and it was a shame to reach out for help. And I don't think that everybody had the opportunity to identify when they were having a breakdown or when they were having a mental crisis or a challenge, because we weren't allowed that time to heal or even to connect with ourselves to see what was going on with us.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, when, the people before us even have a break, constantly, like one of the things about our community, like we've been in survival mode for so long,
Yes, yes.
because of things that have been put in place intentionally, institutional and structural racism,
Yes.
violence against our communities, violence in the form of the war on drugs, mass incarceration.
Mhm.
We haven't had a time to check in with ourselves. It's been constant making sure that I can get to the next day and I can get my family to the next day, that I don't really have time to thrive yet. I just need to make sure I can get from point A to point B in my life. And I think we've stayed stuck there. And as those things have mounted, those things that I just mentioned, and some of the blatant attacks on our community, now we're starting to really feel like the impact of that. Like we've gone through generations of not being able to even have the time to check into our mental health. The mental health community wasn't always for us either,
Yes.
and so that was also another thing. We had therapists and mental health professionals that didn't know how to talk to us. They didn't look like us. They didn't know how to talk to us. There were things about our existence that they couldn't speak to.
Yeah.
So we're in this space where, like, even if we did go to seek it out, it wasn't built for us. And so I think now part of like changing that conversation and opening that conversation up is letting people know, like, hey, there's some safe spaces now. Like it's the field has advanced so much, and we have more Black therapists, psychotherapists, psychologists, psychiatrists than we've ever had. And so they're coming out of graduate programs, like they're ready to give back to the community, and that we're here and their supports, and there's conversations to be had, and really that we can expand on the healing process now with our mental health. So I think it was a thing of trying to get through, physical stuff and getting that to a certain degree. And I think, we can really sit down and start to unpack this, and the mental health system, the people in it look different. They look like us and they understand what we can go through. So I think letting people know, like, hey, it's safer now. I think
Yeah.
that is really the first part of the conversation, because again, we've been in so many places that weren't safe for us. We
Mhm.
were not going to willingly jump into another one that we feel isn't safe for us. So first we need to let people know, like, there's a landing pad for you. Like there's a safe, solid space for you to land.
That is good, Brandon. A safe, solid space. And Angie and I were talking about that this week. And one of the things I was speaking about was we don't make help attractive, and help has not looked attractive. And
Right.
so I think that help has been made, individuals made to look weak. And I know Angie was speaking last week about the fact that when you were looking for therapists, there was not a therapist that looked and can relate with your children. And so now, outside of making help look attractive and letting everybody know there's a safe space, for individuals that are now coming about and learning to open up, how do you teach them and have that conversation to say, hey, I know they said therapy was bad. I know they said that was for crazy people, but you're not crazy for coming and speaking to someone.
Yeah, I think really letting people know, like, about the strength in seeking mental health services, like the strength in really, helping yourself. Like there's something, innately strong about being able to articulate and to talk through things that you're experiencing. Like even, in our culture, we always related and talked and things through story. Like we did that through the oral arts. Like we had that ability to conversate and to talk, and really to share different things about our experience. And so part of our existence is talking and sharing and being able to understand one another. So I think really like letting people know like there is innate strength to be able to talk. Like there's some difficult times and difficult conversations that they're really like are difficult for people to have that can really tighten us up. Like there have been, one of my friends, like we joke because she's like, every time like I get really, really mad, like I start to cry. She was like, and I feel like, like I'm yelling at somebody and then it's just like, like the tears start flowing and things like that. She was like, at the same time, like I'm feeling so many emotions. And because I've held them in so long, when they come out, everything starts to come out at once. Right. So if we give people the opportunity to say, this is hard, like this is a hard conversation to have, let's unpack it and start to have these conversations so that when you begin to talk about them, they don't feel as heavy. Like they don't feel as burdensome. Like we can start to change that through conversation. And so I think if we flip that with people and let them understand like there's strength in that, and there's strength in knowing yourself, like knowing the different parts of yourself. And I think that's really critical for us as guys, because, if you ever ask a guy to describe himself, like it's a lot of like superficial stuff. Like, I like to exercise, like in that way. Like,
everybody working out, at least now with quarantine, with this quarantine 15 they keep talking about, and the way I'm eating, so I can understand.
Look, my wife got me doing all sorts of exercises now, and I'm like, I hate it, but I'm doing it. But
I wanted to reflect on something that you just said, and even what Malkia was talking about in regards to when I addressed the fact that in our community, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of Black counselors or Black male counselors that reflect us or reflect our needs, which also not makes the parents uncomfortable, especially women, because you have a lot of women raising their Black sons alone. So first of all, talking about that sensitive topic about counseling, or how are you feeling right now? Our sons don't want to confess that to their mothers. I'm actually dealing with some of that right now as we speak in my home. So first trying to have that conversation as a Black woman with my Black son, then trying to convince my son to go get counseling with someone that they don't identify with it's like a double negative. It's very difficult. So going from that to how as women, because that's the challenge as women, when we're talking to our Black sons, when we are addressing our Black youth, just in general, what are some of those warning signs in the conversation, in that dialogue? Because I have sons that will tell me everything is fine, or will say nothing at all, because I'm that mother. I am that pain in the butt, annoying mom, that if my son doesn't shower in 2 days, I'm like, do you need to talk to someone, and it could just be he's being a boy, right? But what other signs, communication, dialogue, should women, Black women, or just people in general, what should we be looking for? What are some of those red flags that sons express?
Yeah, that's a great question. I definitely think changes in interest is definitely a big one, especially for our boys. If there is a sudden change in, like, one day, like, they're really like social. Let's say they really like to, be with their friends. They like to be out and about. They're always in the thick of things. And then that starts to change. Or they're super into sports. Like they love playing sports. They love watching sports. Like they're into it. And then all of a sudden their interests change there. That's definitely a sign that something may be going on. Some of the other things is like increased irritability. And again, this is difficult to pinpoint with teenagers. Like
it is.
I have worked with teenagers for a long time, and like some days they just like, one day they're your best friend, the next day they're like, I don't want to be here, I don't want to talk to you, like I'm not with it. But
like we used to be? You mean like we used to be? I mean, that's how I used to be.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, all we got to do is put ourselves in their shoes for a moment. I think that we forget that sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we've all been there. And as adults, there's some days that we don't want to fool with adults. So.
And I'm glad you said that, because something else you brought up about women, or about how we were, or just our generation, or our where we came from, our mothers, our parents, in our community, And I made a joke about it last week where I said, you know, Big Mom, you know, was, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, okay? I'll take all the heat for it. But Big Mom needed counseling, okay? Big Mom was stressed. Big Mom was depressed. And unfortunately, Big Mom taught us how to, you know, cope with stress and anxiety or depression or the other things like domestic violence. Like Big Mom taught us how to just be submissive or suppress all of the things that were going on in the Black home. And that filtered over into the Black community, making light of all of the stress that they encounter, making light of all the weight and burdens that they encounter, especially mental burdens, making it almost like a badge of honor to be able to handle and deal with the struggle. Because if you ask Black people and just in general, how are we doing? What's going on in our life? We always say, you know, I'm making it, I'm surviving, you know, the struggle is real. And that's kind of like our way to, you know, evade the real deal, you know. And you said something like that, which was, it's kind of like, you know, we don't really address it, you know, and then we're great at storytelling, or we are great at making jokes about our pain.
Right.
And then you look at, you know, all the comedians that make us laugh through our pain, right? But it's real serious issues that, yeah, we can laugh about it, but, you know, we are really dying from the pain in our communities. How do we change that? How do we change the conversation from just coping with it and, you know, not address it as some type of badge of honor to just say, I'm making it. Like, I don't want to just make it in life. I don't want my sons and kids just to be making it. And I said this too, just with what I do in my mentorship. I don't want to just, girl, I'm making it. I want to live life. I don't want to survive life.
Yeah, we want to thrive.
I want to thrive. I want to live. I don't want my only accomplishment to be coping through life. Absolutely. So how do we get there as a community, as a Black community? How do we, you know, be more proactive and cooperative with mental health initiatives and, you know, collaborations and help? And
yeah. I mean, I think it's a lot in what you said. I think really one of the big pieces of this is making sure that we have programs that are tailored to us. So for a long time in the mental health field, and to be quite honest, we're still struggling with it in suicide prevention.
Yes.
That have been tested, the interventions that are in place, the messaging on down, it's not built for us. It's not tailored to us. Like, we're getting into that space where we're doing it, but we haven't hit there yet. It's not full saturation there. And so with that, and because it's not built for us, the conversation doesn't seem to tie into what we're feeling in those experiences. And you're right, you know, and, you know, as you said, like, you know, with Big Mama, with, you know, whoever the matriarch is of the family, there were so many things that they had to do and so many positions that they had, you know, not official like titles, but they were doctor, they were provider, they were the therapist. Like, you know, they were those people that really kind of had the role in putting everything together. A lot of times, you know, the dad would be the one like having to, you know, have multiple jobs or do like the physical labor and stuff. And so there wasn't that thing there. So I think really, you know, letting people know that this is important. I think people who have found good mental health spaces where they're okay and comfortable and confident enough to do it, and they're ready to share their story. I think people that have gone through these things in mental health that's helped is to really share their story, like, you know, and talk about the times where things were tough, and to say, hey, like, this is what got me through it. Like, therapy got me through it. What you guys are doing here, like educating and advocacy, is what's going to make the difference, to let people know, like, you know, it's okay to get this help. And so I think doing that is really like the first start, and just unpacking that trauma, because a lot of times when we share those things, people hear themselves, right? So like people will hear like, you know, oh, like, oh, I went through something like that too. And once people start to hear that, it breaks that barrier, and people get the idea of being able to talk. And so we you know, in talking with other guys, like there's a group of us that I know, a group of friends that I have, that are active in therapy, have been to therapy. And so one of the things that we do, like we talk about what that experience is like. You know, like we may post about it, like, and again, I think part of what our culture is sometimes we do make jokes about things. So like, even if we're like, you know, not necessarily like, you know, oh, like the real severe pain that we're making jokes about, but we'll have a laugh about something that happened in therapy or something like that. And so, you know, like having those things that's just saying like, you know, it's not what you think it is on TV. Like it's not you lay on the couch and you sit there and somebody like it doesn't look like that. And like the therapeutic relationship like really can look however it needs to look between you and your therapist. And so I think breaking down those walls of like, this is what perception is, and this is what, you know, this is what it is definitely an important thing for us to do as well.
I think that's amazing. So I want to back up a little bit. So we talked about a little bit of the signs, and Angie, you were asking about the signs as to what Black parents should look for. And I was talking about that a little earlier this week. And I was saying, I think the signs are similar for both men and women. I just think that for our men that we don't give them the room and pay attention. So if they're quiet or if they're withdrawn, I think that we consider that they're normal, or like you were saying, Angie, when you said that they were lazy. So the extreme difference, and you were talking about with our youth, Brandon, the fact that it's very different with our youth. So today they may be okay, and tomorrow they may hate you, and then the next day they may be hungry, and the next day they may want to hug, and next day they don't want to be bothered. And just for us as adults, when we think about the different signs, have there been any new developments of any new signs that we can pay attention to with, you know, like artificial intelligence? Have they been incorporating that into trying to find out better preventative tactics and skills that we can use within our community, specifically for our community?